Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being part of this journey. Yeah, many of you know me. I'm Vikas, and I'm a full stack engineer to start with. Over a period of time, I must have accumulated so many skills, which I would like to share with you all. As part of this conversation today, I would like to discuss about what it takes to be a full stack engineer, and we will even dwell into the basic definitions based on my style, right? So I personally want to see every word that's coined to its true meaning. So when someone says stack, you don't need full stack engineer. Like, let's first break it down, right? We don't need to worry about it at a great detail. We just first need to understand what a stack means, right? Stack of clothes, right? Stack of groceries, anything. They are certain things which come together for a meaningful purpose, right? You don't mix groceries with clothes and then call it a stack. You don't do that, right? So we generally call related items when we make them together, when we bring them together to form or to solve certain purpose, we call that as a stack. In the world of programming, tech stack would mean not just any one stack like MERN, but we have so many other stacks. As part of this PPT, the last link will help you understand to see there are so many stacks. Have a look at them. So when we are talking about the tech stack, the inevitable part is a programming language or some programming languages. That is inevitable, right? Like if you are talking about poetry, you will come across a certain language, and then you will start understanding the poetry as part of that language. Similarly, when we are talking about the tech stack, technology is created using the programming languages, and we cannot avoid them. We need to learn at least few basic languages. For that purpose, try to understand what a language is in a general sense. As I was saying, right? First, try to understand any word that you come across in its literal sense and try to apply it in your technology world. So how do you learn any normal language? What you must have done from the childhood. You have learned alphabets, formed few words, then created few own sentences, then started expressing the way you want, whatever you are thinking of, trying to create own sentences by yourself and speaking it out aloud to communicate. That is very important, right? A language is to communicate. When it comes to the tech stack and programming languages, they are meant to communicate with computer, right? So you pick, why do you require the kind of programming languages what you must be hearing or learning nowadays? They are called high level languages. Earlier we used to have low level languages too, right? But let's not get into that. But high level languages are the languages which will help you to represent your ideas, and they will get transformed to the machine level language, zeros and ones, which computer will be able to understand, right? So just like the way you have learned any natural language, try to focus on the keywords, the syntaxes, the way you need to form the sentences and all, right? And there are some idioms. It's easier for you. You can always construct these idioms, but maybe it will give a good start if you follow through them. The ones which are listed in the link. There are around 300 plus. Have a look at them. Learning a programming language should never be very hard, right? It's all about making that first effort. You need to do that. Once you learn a language, then comes the technology. So the technology which is created by others and you keep stacking them as the required libraries, then you call it as a stack, right? If you are trying to solve a problem that is relevant to the World Wide Web, then we call it as a web stack, right? In the web stack, okay, let's start it from the World Wide Web. What does those words signify? Any solution that you create, you expect that to be scaling it to worldwide, right? That means a software that you are running is not expected just to run on your computer, but anywhere. To start with, let's simplify it. Let's scale it down. Let's say whatever solution you create, that should be accessible by your friends and family first. They're your world. So create software in such manner. And even when we expanded that definition to that point, we need a medium where our solution can be expressed. Usually, when we are talking about the web stack, our browser stands as a medium, and the address bar is our window to the world. You type in a web server address and the web page gets loaded, right? But as a developer, you are supposed to know what happens behind the scenes so that you will be able to control each and every element. So when a web page is getting loaded, it's called on the web page, or and the one whatever you are seeing on the web browser. In the technical terms, it can be called as front end technologies. Why these terms are important? Because we don't want to invent everything by ourselves and call by our own names, right? If we want to look up in Google and find the relevant content which will motivate us, you need to learn this terminology so that it will be far easier. So anything that you get to see on your web page relates to front end, right? It's like in a shop, it's like a, or in an office, it's like a front end desk. That is the first place anyone would interact. Everything will come to that point. So the front-end application deals with user interfaces and user experience, how you interact with the application. There might be a very complex application sitting behind, but it would be expressed only with finite number of UI elements and the user experience that you define. The power of front-end developer is that he will be able to represent a complex system in a very simplistic term so that an end user will be able to interact with it and gain the benefit of that. So we were talking about creating and understanding the web stack. We discussed about front end application. The moment you make certain interaction with the front end interface, the user experience will be defined because of a complex backend, right? Whichever is working on. So when we are talking about a full stack engineer, we are talking about a front end engineer, a back end engineer, a DevOps engineer, and even a database engineer, all bundled, the insights of all these people bundled in one person. You need to have that insight, and on need basis, you should be able to operate at each layer. A full stack developer is nothing but proficient person who is able to work at all layers. That's important. So as we were discussing the World Wide Web problem, that's what is being discussed here. Consider an application. It will not be free of a design, right? Designing is, don't make any word alien to you. I want you people to own every word as if you are that, right? When we are talking about designing, it's about distributing your solution space in such a way that it will not get cluttered. If you try to implement UI, UX, backend, everything, database interaction, everything in a single place, earlier it used to be called as monolithic desktop applications. There will be a one single exe which has every detail. Now, when it comes to the World Wide Web, we try to break that down into different verticals. So it's nothing wrong having all of them at a place. That's what we used to have in desktop applications. That's how we used to have. But we broke them into different verticals so that different teams will be able to function, right? UI, UX can function independently. Backend services can be developed independently, and database can be developed independently, and they all can come together to serve the world, right? World, the one which we know. the one which we are preparing the solution for. So here, as you see, a user is always trying to interact with the user interfaces, and there are backend components which will act as a service, and there is a backend. This is typically called as a three-tier architecture. As a full stack developer, you need to understand various design possibilities, various architectural possibilities. When we talk about architecture, right, it's all about, maybe you should start looking it from the deployment perspective, how you want your solution to be deployed. Then from those ideas, the components, whichever you try to define, they will form the basis of your fundamental architecture. Would you want to have a caching layer? What are your non-functional requirements? What are your functional requirements? How would you want to break them? And what is your team size? All of these will affect your architecture. How are you going to structure your application? Is it a single page app? Not in the terms of SPA, but what I'm trying to talk about is like, would you end up creating 10,000 lines of code in a single page, or would you want to break them down, giving individual responsibilities? We will see how that is as part of our demo. I just wanted to bring it up. So how would you want to structure your application will be defined by your architecture and principles. So you need to learn about them so that it would be far easier for you to represent your ideas. If the front end UI UX is directly being interacted and it is able to query database, that's what the latest uh, Google's innovation has brought us, Firebase database. Firebase has its own set of rules. On top of the database, they have created certain rules which govern who will be able to access this database and how. When user got authenticated into his space, automatically there is a user authentication context which is present that will help me understand to which group this user belongs to which group this user belongs to, and what kind of data that he can access. That JWT or certain properties are helping this database management system to interpret whether it can deliver the data which is being queried or not. Now we are not developing so many services. This is called two-tier architecture. You are directly interacting, not directly interacting. There is a system even in between, more transparent, but it appears as if you are talking to the database, right? So we spoke about certain design elements, and that will help you structure your application as a two-tier app or three-tier application. Why that is important? It is important because it gives you some governing rules saying like you need to develop your backend APIs. That needs to be a different server. That basic conversation itself will help you structure your app. Now you are saying like you have a front end and you are saying you want it to be displayed on a browser. Then you will start exploring a tech stack that will help you to do that. So React is an excellent front-end framework that will help you do that. But it is not the only one. There is Angular, there is Vue.js, there are more. If you are trying to be in the world of JavaScript as a programming language, if that is guiding you, or if you are trying to take the help of JavaScript as a programming language, then these are the tech stacks which will help you. But you don't need to limit yourself. If you are proficient with Python, you can pick up Django. If you are proficient with Java, you can pick up Spring. It's not about the framework. It's not about the programming language too, for that matter. It's about your ideas and how you want to represent them. So what I would advise is the most underrated idea of pseudo algorithms or pseudo code, what we must have all practiced on day one when we are kicking into programming. We need to bring that up more often, right? Try to represent your ideas in plain English. What would you do if you are an engineer and if you are trying to solve it, or if you are a person, even before becoming a software engineer, let's consider ourselves as a person and try to solve the problem on paper, what it would mean, and how would I solve if I'm the only person who is working with it? Try to list them down. Now, try to bring in more elements like what if 10 people are trying to work with the same solution? It would not scale. That's when technology will kick in. Now, try to map the technology. So, as a software engineer, the term software engineer itself is not simple. It has considerable understanding and considerable expectations. So if we understand them, we will scale to that part. We would not limit ourselves only to say like I know certain programming language and I should be called myself as a software engineer. You having an expectation like you should be called as a software engineer is only up to one part. The bigger dependency is you expecting others to look at you as a software engineer. But if that is your expectation, that is an unavoidable expectation. You yourself calling out as a software engineer is good for you, but only if others call you, that is when you will get paid, right? You must all have seen the post I have recently made on LinkedIn. Is it not inspiring? Earning 5 lakhs per month is not a joke, right? So what it takes to be a true software engineer, what it takes to be a true full stack engineer. I'm going to discuss only the surface as part of this call. But if you are interested, if you really want to be that person, if you want to have a clear understanding of each of the bullet point what we are discussing here, wherever you think you are lacking, you want to fill the gap, reach out, put a comment, help us understand what you really need. We will try to come up with a session and try to expand it so that you will clearly understand and achieve the goal, become more competent. I have done it all, I have seen it all, and I want to give it back to the community. I have seen 8-digit salaries. Being a software engineer, even you can do that. If I have done it, you will be able to do that. So you need to understand about software development lifecycle. You need to understand about the requirement collection. Their soft skills matter, right? Requirement collection is not like we go to some place and he will just list it down 1, 2, 3, 4. This is what I want. No, it would not suffice. You need to probe. You need to understand. You need to understand what is the real world problem that they are dealing with. And you need to understand how you need to convert it back to the virtual world. You cannot overcome it or you cannot underperform. You need to understand. For that, you need to have a very good, broad understanding of what a system is. You need to understand the basics of designing. You cannot overpromise and even underperform. Both would not fly well. You need to understand what a development is all about. You need to understand about testing. You cannot make your customers as your testers, right? You need to give a proficient world-class software, present it to the world in such a way like they only get to share their awe feeling to you. That will make you earn more. Earn more from all perspectives. That can be respect or that can be monetary benefits like money, but you need to keep earning that. You need to know how these things will be deployed. So while developing a solution, you need to keep that in mind. Otherwise, it's very hard. It can start with simple application properties, or it can be the secret keys of database, which you need to share with the application. If you do not understand the deployment, you will spill up the beans and your application is no longer secure. You need to understand that. You need to know how maintenance is about. If you fix a defect when your application is already in production, how would you push it? You need to understand them, right? We spoke about so many things. Let's see what they would look like if they are really applied. As part of this demo, I'm going to pick MERN-stack based application. I would want to show you how it would look like if we would have developed a very simple idea, task management system. You must be having tasks on daily basis, but if you wanted to list them down, what would be the ideal way? As I said, from the pseudo algorithm perspective, it might be writing them using pen and paper at your desk. Well and good, but they'll not be with you. You need to carry the book everywhere. Maybe that is good, right? But if you want to share that task with, or if you're working on a shared task, what would you do? You cannot keep sharing that book to everyone. That is when we try to create a technology-based solution so that even others will be able to access. So as part of this demo, we will try to have a look at how or what it takes, how and what. We will just try to dwell into those details. Follow along with me. I'll try to share my screen where I have implemented that. Yep. This is our LinkedIn page. This is where I was talking about. See, Meltwater is talking about they need 6+ years a full stack development engineer, and they are ready to pay 60 lakhs per annum. It's not just limited to IIT and ITs. It's for anyone who can deliver. You should be able to prove why companies put these constraints, because they believe they have sufficient knowledge to deliver 10 times of what they are paying. That's what it takes. So don't expect like someone is paying you for free. But if you are able to contribute back, you will get the perks like you can work from home or you can work from anywhere and still be part of the journey. Okay, let me bring up. What I'm doing here is I'm just bringing up my front-end application. We will discuss about the details once it is demonstrated. Okay, that would be far easier. I did not have dev as a script. So let's say npm run start, and that should start it up, right? We will discuss about why that error has occurred. And of course, it's part of the journey. We will discuss that. So this is the simplistic task manager, which I was talking about. So as a developer, as a full stack engineer, you are expected to think about the minute elements what on this screen. That's about the user experience, right? Here you get to see filters, all tasks pending, in progress, the easiest way to access what is present in our system. There are so many completed tasks. If you give all tasks, you get to see all of them. These are called filters. That's one idea. And for whatever reason, I thought this is completed, but now I want to change it to pending. It's not completed yet. So I was able to mark. So if you select, there is an actions button which is kicking in. This is user experience, which we are talking about. You can select multiple tasks. You can select this one and this one too, and mark all of them to pending. And now what we are seeing, is that a bad experience? Probably. If you go pending, you get to see the tasks. And if you say all tasks, okay, maybe this updated DBAL task, we have it twice. In all tasks, it's not showing, it is showing as pending. So yes, things are working. Maybe I have seen it wrong. Let me try it once again. I'm selecting all these pending tasks, taking an action, marking them as in progress. Yeah, I missed earlier. I thought there was no user interaction happened automatically. I thought it's a bad experience, but no, it went well. We are able to see our action reflecting right away, and the actions button has gone now because nothing is selected. Making those minute decisions, right? That's part of creating the user experience. Why is that important? Because as a developer, you need to figure out whether you need to hide that button or let it stay there. Your requirements, your code, all depends on that. Depends on your user experience. So do not code just for coding purpose. Code it for a better user experience. So we created a web application. Today, I'm just hosting it on my local host, but we can always host it. We'll take it as a separate session based on your interest in comments, how we can deploy it on cloud. We can take it as a separate conversation. Now let's get back what it took to create such a user experience. We divided the application idea into several bits and pieces. Like we have a backend node, we have a front-end application. I created Nginx, which acts as a front-end gateway for me, and we created Docker Compose scripts. So as I was discussing earlier, as a full stack engineer, we brought in the deployment angle. We brought in how the interface would be communicating with each other, each component talking to each other. We even talked about the front end and back end. We did not create all of them at a place. How would you create all of them at a place? There is another technology which is available, Next.js. That is also possible. Using Next.js, you can have both your backend code and front-end code reside at a place. But still, I did not choose that. I chose a different path so that I would want you to realize how to separate. Separation of concerns is a big architectural pattern, right? You need to understand that more. Coming to front end, you get to see these are like we are using NPM based development, Node Package Manager, but in front end, all of that would get transformed to a single application. You will have a lot of JavaScripts, a bundle will get created, and there will be a HTML file which is responsible to deliver all of that content. We will discuss more about front end in another conversation. For now, let's discuss about the backend part. The package JSON is the bread and butter for Node.js based applications. Package JSON is a place where you get to list out your third-party dependencies. We called it as dev dependencies and dependencies. There is a difference. For compilation, you require all of this, but for running, you don't require these libraries. TypeScript based libraries are required to convert our TypeScript back to JavaScript. But once they are converted, you no longer require them. You only require compression cores, dot environment, or other. Express.js is something which we picked up. Stack I mentioned. So we are picking Express, and Mongoose is being used as our ORM layer so that we talk to the backend. Before even going to discuss more in detail about the backend, let's first have a look at how our Docker Compose file look like, right? From the top view, we can see there is a database, right? And there is a backend node. I intentionally developed the same backend even in the Java technology. Can discuss it sometime later. Share a comment on LinkedIn if you are willing to know more. And this is the Nginx layer which we are talking about. Nginx layer, we can even have a look at how the configuration looks like. And this is the Mongo Express. This is an admin UI for our MongoDB. And we have so many volumes and networks. I can help you understand more about this Docker Compose script. If it is very cryptic for you, reach back to us. When it comes to Nginx configuration, I intentionally created multiple configurations. And if you would have observed in my dev compose file, I must have used This is a different, but we do have a possibility to use Nginx dev configuration. Yeah, Nginx dev.conf is being used and it is being mapped as a default conf. Default conf is the one which is picking by the Nginx server, right? When it comes to the production Nginx configuration, we are saying, one second, let me find out where that volume is. Nginx logs is being picked up and okay, we are building a container and it is able to pick up the nginx.conf itself. Okay. So this is how we'll even have a look at how the nginx configuration looks like, right? So let me look at the Docker file and here we are copying nginx conf to default conf. So that's how it is working. When we are building the Docker file, we are saying we will pick a image from Nginx Alpine and we are having we are building our container image. If you want to learn more about Docker images, containers, how to write the Docker files, again, reach back to us. This is just the surface. I want you to understand what it takes for a full stack engineer and what all details they need to go through. None of them are optional. You need to understand each one of them. When we are coming to Nginx configuration, we need to understand what a upstream is, how we are able to make a particular route API point to your backend service and respond. That's all there. You will be able to create your own load balancer kind of a configuration and fail-safe configuration and make your APIs respond from your backend services. Backend services need not get exposed by themselves. They can run on whatever ports they want as long as they are behind the reverse proxy server. Let's come back to, yeah, I was just checking time where we are. We still have 15 minutes. For a moment, I thought we were overshooting the time, but no, we are good. So let's come back to the backend server. I wanted you to understand writing code can be done by everyone, but writing it well can only be done by a trained engineer, right? Only they would understand how to talk to their application. When you are building an application, imagine yourself as an enterprise. An enterprise would not run with a single person, right? It would have a front desk, it would have a printer room, or it would have a work area, it would have meeting rooms. Every space has got its own purpose. You need to divide them. It's not that like you are a team of 4 people and you would have a conversation on the floor, right? There is a designated place, you go over there and you talk. Similarly, you need to you need to carefully design your application so that it will perform well. You need to think about it. You need to understand the tools that you are using. So in Visual Studio Code, when I'm talking about my application TS, I can look at outline. This is the easiest way I can access my application. There is a bootstrap function. Here, if you get to see, I'm bootstrapping my app, my backend server. I said like I have a task manager application. I want to get the default configuration of it and I want to create an application using my task manager app. I want to initialize it and I want to start it. We'll just have a brief look what initialization means. When I'm initializing it, I'm saying like, let me start my logging configuration. Let me set up my database. Let me configure my middlewares. If you are familiar with Express.js or the backend coding, the middleware talks about so many things. I'll have a brief look at come back quickly. The CORS definition, compression, and all of that is part of it. Okay. Set up routes. when we are trying to set up routes, route is your API, which you are responding to, and how it would look like. See how cleanly the code is. You should be able to read it. This function has a single purpose. It is trying to initialize. It is not trying to do anything more. And after initialization, we are saying we want to start. What it means to start? We are saying we want to listen on a particular port based on the configuration. So that's how the applications would look like. Let's have very quick sneak peek into how our routes would look like. So when we are saying start route, we might be thinking like all the route definitions would be given here. No, we even separated that. We said like the root endpoint and API docs are being defined here, but actual routes are being defined in task routes. That's another object. We are saying get router and define it on slash tasks. When you see get router, here you get to have slash health, slash statistics, slash status. There are so many URI paths that we are listening. These are route definitions, by the way. And here we are returning each of them. But this is where we have defined setup routes. What we did was slash health. We said like health check will be handled by this async handler. And if we are talking about statistics, task controller is taking care of that. So I would want you all to have such an understanding how you would like to break the application in such a way that no function or no object would be overloaded. This is guided by one of the famous design principles, single responsibility principle. So how would you get that into practice? We can discuss that in more detail. We can discuss about how would we try to envision that, or how would we think through the single responsibility principle, how the ideas are cluttered, how can we separate them so that they are manageable, and what are the motivations to actually think on those lines. We can discuss all of that. If you are really interested, we can discuss them in our another session where we will talk about single responsibility principle and other design principles. Okay. This is how the backend code looks like, and it is Dockerized. As of now, it is running in my walkthrough sessions where you have my backend node, and I will be able to look at logs, and this is how it is being served. When we are requesting it from frontend, we see like our backend service is responding back. Let me come back. Just give me a second. Let me come back to our demonstration. So what we have seen in our demo was a MERN stack in action, right? We have seen how it is getting deployed, how Nginx is helping us to serve the routes. We have seen MongoDB responding back, but we have not actually seen the schema. If you are really interested how Mongoose is in action, how the ORM layer is playing, and why do we really require? Can't we directly talk to MongoDB? We can, right? But what are the motivations behind having Mongoose over there? And how would we interact with the MongoDB using or create models, schema models, and get the JSON object from Mongo database and start working with it? Or how would we update? Comment in our LinkedIn session, LinkedIn space, and we will come back for a detailed conversation on that, a session like this. Or you can reach out to us for a one-on-one mentoring kind of a conversation. If you are struck with any one piece of which you want to have a clarity, reach out to us. So Express.js is the middleware. React.js That's a default de facto or default application framework which we go to. Again, it helps us to separate out the concerns. Like it doesn't make us bother with the entire load of the application. It will help us to focus on one UI element at a time and one user experience at a time. It will help you break down your entire front end overhead into different components. That's where React will excel, right? There are so many intricacies that we need to discuss. How would you maintain the state? How would you interact with the backend service? And how would you make your React application more modular and not to mess up combining everything in a single place? We will deal that as part of our next session. Okay. Node.js, earlier we have used to have so many backends, but Node.js gave us a breather because we now are able to deal with JSON, JavaScript object notation, right from the browser up to the backend. And it creates a lot of ease in our mind when we are dealing with the same structure everywhere. It would ease a lot of designing principles and be in the context. That is more important. It will help us to be there. But having said that, we don't need to limit ourselves just by Node.js. We can even step out of that MERN stack as long as you really understand the power of Nginx. You can build your Java-based Spring API server and still make it part of your ecosystem. That is very much possible. Why would one want to do that? Because community is hybrid. Each one is proficient in one aspect, and they must have created a beautiful solution which you do not want to recreate. You wanted to bring it into your stack. So Nginx can act as your gateway behind the scenes when you are serving APIs. The functionality, how you build world is not bothered. As long as you give a consistent UI and user experience, in which language, which framework you implement doesn't really matter. I would definitely want to you all to know about it. I would really love to discuss on those lines. Let me know if you really want that kind of a conversation. Yeah, this slide talks about front end. I wanted to double click on that purposefully. When we discussed application development at such a high level, they all will be inspiring. Even in the demonstration, you must have seen the user experience. It is smooth. For building such applications, we need to have certain basics, right? Learning React is not good enough, right? Even before learning React, you need to have a very good understanding of what a HTML is. You need to understand what HTML5 is. What are the kind of abilities that it is giving you? There is an audio tag. You don't need a library. There is a video tag over there. You might be able to leverage it. Even to understand what your browser is capable of, you need to understand that, right? Hypertext markup language, right? Every React component you are creating is spilling out the same HTML, but if you do not know that, will you be able to create it well? No, I don't think so. Cascading style sheets. Earlier, we used to create CSS separately as a file. Now, when you are bringing up React components, each component can have its own style. But would you limit yourself with that? Would you not have a global style? You may have it, right? You need to understand the power of CSS. You need to know what it means to separate presentation from data. First, you need to know about that. So I would encourage you all to write certain HTML, which is very rudimentary, very basic. Just try to represent some lorem ipsum kind of text. And now apply some style over it and see how beautiful your dummy basic data would transform to. I want you to appreciate them. When it comes to JavaScript, that gives you dynamism. Earlier, sorry for that. the hindrance of having connected devices. Okay, let me go back. So JavaScript was helping us to create dynamism for the front-end applications. But and the key aspects, UI, UX, front-end frameworks, they all, first they need to form a basis in your mind, create the mindset, right? So leadership is a mindset. If you want to truly lead the full stack development, have that kind of a mindset with you. That will help you create applications using the front end frameworks like React, the one which we have seen. We haven't seen React in the demonstration much, but trust me there, we did use React as the foundations to create such a UI, user experience. We will discuss that later. But React is not the only one. There are other frameworks, Angular, Next.js, Django. Every fellow has their own strengths and weaknesses. If you go through them as a full stack engineer, don't limit yourself with one framework. Expand your horizon. First, try to appreciate the ideas, what they are bringing in, and they will help you demonstrate your expression, demonstrating your expression in a way. Having said all of that, as you have seen, expressing yourself with a certain programming language and using so much of frameworks to express yourself, your ideas, will not come to light unless you master certain tooling. It's very required. Never, don't look low on these. They are very required. Shell scripting, I know many would say like I'm familiar with, I myself did it at some point. I was fan of a C language, and that stopped me learning JavaScript. That stopped me learning shell scripting. Don't do that. Don't do the mistakes which I did. You will be able to excel only if you have mastered all of that. I have learned so many lessons and I'm eager to teach you all, or eager to share them. Even if not teaching, it's kind of sharing with you, right? So reach back. Let's have a constructive conversation on them. Stress test, you need to test your applications that you are building. Observability stack, you need to have them. You need to have a greater understanding about the division of relational and NoSQL databases, database management system. I intentionally put it above it. You will be able to create a database management system. Do not consider database management system as just relational. There can even be a NoSQL based management system. So first try to structure your areas from the cluttered space. That will give you a lot of flexibility to create the required persistence for your applications. You can always reach out to us, and I forgot to mention the company LinkedIn page over here, but I believe you all would have come from the same space or are familiar with our LinkedIn page, Prabodh Technologies. Post a comment over there or reach out to me, write an email to support@prabodh.in. We can get in touch with you and see to that you are a great full stack engineer. There are a lot of details. You don't need to deal all of them by yourself. Reach out. We can do it collectively. And as I said, if I was successful, you can be one. And personally, I need a lot of successful engineers. I have so many ideas to implement, but am low of talent. I need people who can perform, who are capable, and who have that passion, who have the insight. If you are the one, reach back to me. We want to deliver more. We want to create. We want to make a change, right? Let's do that. Have a great day. This is Vikas talking about full stack engineering and what it takes. Thanks a lot. Have a great time.